No, the sad story about GameStory is actually that we had 8 submissions and not all of the 8 teams did make it, only one. And we thought that maybe we give it a boost, and fortunately enough, the colleagues from Vietnam were able to jump in, so this was a last minute thing, and we tried synchronized in parallel with Michael Riegler to do something, and yeah, well, he tried with deep learning, I tried with naive metadata analysis, let's call it like that, and I succeeded, he didn't. Deep learning doesn't solve everything. So that's the submission of the GameStory organization team to GameStory, so that's what we thought might be a valid entry, not a winning entry, but a valid entry. Okay, we had already the 12-fold view, you've seen that, and you have also already seen the problem that those views are not synchronized, and that's, I want to just use the few seconds here and thank Michael Wutti again, because you might not have noticed it, but the game ended at every frame at the same time in his summary, and he invested 2 weeks fully to just synchronize it to a frame level, which is really hard. The streams are not synchronized at all. You've also seen the commentator stream, and you've noticed that this contributes to the emotion. So if you're watching that and the commentator gets louder and takes a look at the player, and the player, I mean, this is not the most expressive guy ever, but still you can see that he's happy with what he's done. So that helps the audience. So as your question indicated, we had to pick the challenges we wanted to face, and we had to face them in 2 days, so we had to pick very well. And the kill streaks were really obvious, because that is something where the commentator always went up in voice activity. It's like, he did it again, and whatever, so it seemed to be important. And those could be nicely read from the metadata file. Let's leave away the synchronization at 3 seconds at the front, at 3 seconds at the end, and we're there. That was the basic idea. Then the stats on the match were mandatory, because what I felt was I was being overwhelmed by this Counter-Strike thing. So you took a look at it, and then you saw the match stats, but they were out of context. You didn't know where you actually are. It's not like in soccer where it's before the goal and after the goal. It's in round, and then you just add the scores, and you see 15 to 17. Is it an interesting round or not? We don't know, because we don't know the development beforehand. So that's what we wanted to integrate, also pretty cheap because it's in the data. Then the commentator stream conveys emotion. Of course, a practical thing would be to leave the commentator stream out completely, because then we don't need a commentator. But now for a cheap guess, for a cheap pick, let's pick the commentator stream above all others, because it conveys emotion. So it should be entertaining. And the economy, the money should be there. And there was the first problem. That was not such a good pick, because you could see what people bought, but it's not all about buying stuff. It's also about making money. So you couldn't see how much money the team made, and also about giving other people the stuff they needed. So you typically have to track the whole game process to see if a player died in the last round, didn't end up with money, but if all the others had money, they would give him the equipment that the player that died needed. So it's maybe not a very straightforward thing, but you need to model it. So what we did is that here, and I can explain it along the way.
Takes down Nico, ever closer to the bomb. Take down Nico if he was quick enough to find the shot. On to Kerrigan, excuse me. Rain might not have been able to get the shot.
So we had the commentator stream on the left upper corner, and the views of the players on the left lower corner, and we had the game stats going from left to right in the background. So this gave us the game stats. And yeah, we kind of had the problem of non-synchronization, but we solved that with not displaying 2 videos at the same time that were synchronized or meant to be synchronized, so we tricked our way around it. And we picked the videos manually. I mean, we had the mini videos extracted automatically from the stream, but the editing then was manually. So we put them all together in OpenShot in the video editor and pressed process, and then the final video came out. So we did a video for the background, then inverted the color, because people said I don't want to have black text on white background, but the other way around, so invert it was. And then we took the videos we extracted from the commentator stream and from the views and used them as overlays. That's basically it. And the commentator, we focused on the round ends. So we picked rounds manually and put them in, because the round ends typically are emotional. And we used that, and at the very end, let's jump to the end. We used the end of the whole match and then just added 30 seconds to the time point and showed how the people behaved, how the audience behaved, to give it a good ending. So we had a master plan, a storyboard, and we kind of followed it. What didn't we do? We didn't synchronize the video. I mean, it's pretty hard. I knew, because my master student, it took him 2 weeks, so I didn't even try. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to use the map stream so that people could see where people are hiding, where they are going, and you see with little skull icons where people died. But that was not possible to synchronize because there is no audio inside the map stream, and there's no visual clue to sync it to the other streams. With visual clues, like when the scores change, then you can map the videos to each other. But there are no scores in the map stream. You can just map it to the mini maps of the players, and that's pretty hard. I mean, that's one thing I could have tried. Didn't came up with that idea at the time I wanted to implement it, but yeah, well. Then the audio cuts, reviewers arguably said the audio is shit. I mean, it's just cut at fixed time points in the video, so it starts mid-sentence and ends mid-sentence. There should have been some content analysis on the power envelope, and we just cut it if there is no sound. So that would have been much better. And of course, the final decision of how to cut the video should be done automatically, maybe with heuristics or something like that. We actually did quite well with the reviews. I mean, not worse than the others, but that was of course because we had the game statistics in the background, which were really cheap. So most of the reviewers noted that we just submitted one run. Most of the reviewers noted it's just called run 3 because the other 2 were with white background. Most of the reviewers noted that the cards moving in the background are distracting, but they give a certain impression on what's going on, and they honored this effort, kind of. But it didn't help too much, so they criticized in the same way. We did a little bit better with the flow and the peak of a good story, because in the background you could see how it developed, but yeah, well, it suffered the same problems as everybody else. What's next? So if we're going to hack out another solution next year, which we sincerely hope we don't, that there are 11 submissions then for GameStory 2, we'll definitely go for content-based analysis. So we have done some work on it. For instance, trying to find out when people are speaking, but it didn't work because the commentator is speaking all day long, and the viewer streams, there is no spoken text at all. And what we also think of might be interesting to integrate is the event data, which is out of the context of the game. That's also something, sneak preview, what Michael Wutti tried. He actually did with deep learning a trophy detection. Whenever they showed the trophy, then the commentator said something meaningful about the next match or about the state of the match or something like that. So he correlated it with that, and that was the out of match thing that actually made an extra grain of salt here, and that would have made a big difference, but he then didn't manage to get to a reasonable ratio of detection. But out of event data, out of event stream data, context might be very interesting. Okay, that's it. Same finishing slide.
We already have one